Hello there Year 9 and welcome to week 3 of distance learning. We've just done our rotation, so we are looking at biology again and the topic B4, which is bioenergetics. The topic starts off with photosynthesis and then goes on to respiration. So make sure that you've got the correct book. You need your biology book, not your chemistry or your physics. We're just going to do a bit of a recap, a reminder of some of the things we learned in B1. And we're just looking here at the structure of the leaf. So we've got like a 3D image of the leaf on the top right there with the waxy cuticle on the top. It's waterproofing, prevents water loss from the top of the leaf. We've got the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis, which have cells there to protect the leaf. The most important layer of cells in the leaf is this layer here. This is the palisade cells, okay? These are the ones that contain the most number of chloroplasts where photosynthesis takes place. And we're going to be talking about that a lot in this topic. And here, cutting across this leaf here, we've got a vein of the leaf comprising of the xylem and the phloem. We looked at those in B1, we're going to look at them again in this topic B4, the xylem and the phloem. The xylem carrying the water and the minerals from the roots to the leaf, and the phloem carrying the sugar to all locations around the plant. We're going to talk about why that's the case. We've also had a look at guard cells. Guard cells are either side of the stomata, and the stomata are the holes in the underside of the leaf, which are there for gas exchange primarily. Okay, so movement of carbon dioxide into the leaf and oxygen out of the leaf by diffusion. But as a result of having holes in the leaf, we also have water loss. Okay, so this is just all recap information from B1. We're not writing anything down yet, we're just kind of familiarising ourselves with the structure of the leaf. We've also got this layer underneath the palisade cells. These odd-shaped cells are called the spongy mesophyll. There's some chloroplasts in those cells. They do some photosynthesis. Lots of air spaces between them for the gases to diffuse through that area to get those that carbon dioxide to the palisade cells for photosynthesis and the oxygen away from it. Okay. So here is a cross section through the stem, and we can see the xylem and the phloem. And the xylem carry the water and the minerals. We call that process transpiration, and translocation of the sugar, moving in all directions, taking the sugar to different locations. Translocation, transporting to different locations, is the phloem. And then at the bottom of the picture there, we've got those guard cells. Again, we've got a pair of open guard cells there, allowing gas exchange through the stomata, and then we've got the guard cells closed. And we'll talk about when and how that occurs later on in the topic. So that's our introduction. We're now on to the title. So how do plants make their own food? Let's write down our title and let's write down today's date in our biology books, please. Now I'm going to be doing these videos in real time, so as much as possible you'll be working at the same speed as me. If on some occasions you need extra time and you need to pause, then I'll tell you when you might need to do that. Okay, so we're writing down our title, How do plants make their own food? Okay, if you want to draw a leaf in the middle of your page, you can. If you want to do a bullet point list, also fine. So we're looking at our leaf. What kind of features has it got? And usually I'd get people to come up to the board and write their ideas around it, but we're just going to do that in our books today. What kind of features does the leaf have to make it good at doing its job, which is photosynthesis? Okay, so think of some ideas, start annotating a few. I think we'll probably get maybe 6 or 8 ideas, something like that. So have a little go at thinking about your ideas. And let's think about some of those ideas. So the leaf is green, and that's because of the pigment chlorophyll, okay, which is found in the chloroplasts. And the chlorophyll is really important because chlorophyll absorbs light. Okay, so without chlorophyll, the light will not be absorbed and therefore photosynthesis cannot take place. The leaves are very thin, they're flat, they're broad, they have a large surface area. Okay, all of these enable the leaf to collect lots and lots of light. Okay, don't need to be too thick because the light won't travel down to those cells lower down. We've got those veins there with the xylem and the phloem. We've talked about those already. So the xylem transporting the water and the minerals around the leaf, and the phloem transporting the sugar all around the plant to all the different locations. We've got drip tip leaves. We have the fact that they never overlap each other. You don't see two leaves with one underneath the other because it's not going to get any light, it's not going to grow well, so they kind of spread themselves out. And we've got the waxy cuticle. And if you've got any other ideas, that's fine, you can add those. If you need any extra time on this section, then pause now. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So, what are the organs which make up a plant? Okay, so quick 4 marker. What are the organs which make up a plant? Now, an organ is defined as, and we did this in B1, it's defined as a group of tissues working together. So the organs are the roots, the leaf, the flower, okay, and the stem. The roots, the leaves, flower, and the stem. And what we're going to do is kind of build up this picture. And you can draw this picture if you want to, or you can just wait and we'll go on to the word and symbol equations together shortly. We're going to build up this picture thinking, right, what happens to the plant? Logically, what happens to the plant? So we've got water taken in by the roots, and we've got carbon dioxide taken in by diffusion in the air. I should say the water goes in by osmosis, carbon dioxide by diffusion. Okay, so those are our two reactants, the two things that are going to react together in the chloroplasts, and that is the process photosynthesis, okay? And they need light energy and chlorophyll. Now that's like the oven, okay? If you've got the cake mix but you haven't got the oven, it's not going to work, okay? So the light and the chlorophyll, they're not reactants, but they have to be there for the reaction to work. So that's why I say it's like the oven. And the two products we get are oxygen, which is diffused out of the leaves, and glucose, which is used by the plant. Okay, and we'll talk about how it's used by the plant in a future lesson. So we can build up this picture, or we can go on to our word and symbol equations. If you'd like to build up this picture, drawing this in your book, then and you need extra time, then pause now. Okay, so we've got the word equation first of all. It's really important we don't mash up our word and symbol equations. We need to, if we're asked for a word equation, we stick to a word equation. Asked for a symbol equation, stick to a symbol equation. And we just said that the carbon dioxide goes into the leaves by diffusion. The water goes in by osmosis. We talked about the light and the chlorophyll needing to be there. Okay, it's the chlorophyll absorbs the light energy, and it's like the oven. They're not reactants. And the products are glucose, which is really important for the plant. That's how the plant is making its own food. Okay, it's synthesizing its own food, which is the glucose. And then the oxygen is a byproduct. Okay, so there's our word equation. And our symbol equation looks a bit like this. Okay, and to balance it, rather than spending all day balancing it, we just remembered that we put a 6 in front of all the small molecules. So we've got 6 CO2. Make sure that the number at the front is big. This is saying we've got 6 of all of that, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. But that too, notice how it's low. Some people get into this habit of making that too high. That's not a thing. Okay, so it must be low. Plus 6 H2O, and this makes glucose, 1 molecule of glucose, which is C6H12O6. It's kind of like a 6 sandwich, I always say. The bread is like the 6s and the filling is like the 12s. So we've got twice as much filling as we have bread. And oxygen, which is 6 molecules of oxygen, 6 O2. Okay, so that's our symbol equation. So let's get notes from this page written into our books. And if you need extra time, then pause now. So what is photosynthesis and where does it happen? Okay, this is kind of our summary of what we're getting out of today to really make sure we understand what photosynthesis is, because it's a fundamental aspect to the rest of this topic, knowing what photosynthesis is, so that when we refer to it later in the topic, we fully understand. So here's our definition. Photosynthesis, yes, we can write this down please, is a chemical reaction that takes place in the chloroplasts of green plant cells called the palisade cells. We looked at those right at the beginning, where light energy is used to convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen. Okay, and we could even say that the light energy is absorbed by the chlorophyll. Okay, so if you want to add that, the light energy is absorbed by the chlorophyll. And let's get those notes into our books. Okay, the light energy is absorbed by the chlorophyll. The light energy is absorbed by the chlorophyll. If you need extra time, then pause now. Okay, so here we can see we've got a really nice electron microscope image here of some of those palisade cells. You can see the chloroplasts in there, okay, full of that green pigment, the chlorophyll, and that is what absorbs the light. Okay, and up here we're going to come across these through the top. It's called a variegated leaf. Okay, and a variegated leaf means that parts of it have got chlorophyll and parts of it do not have chlorophyll. And you see these white or yellow regions of the plant. And no photosynthesis can occur in those patches of the leaf, because if there's no chlorophyll, then there is no photosynthesis. So if you had another leaf that was exactly the same size, that was completely green, it would do a lot more photosynthesis than this particular leaf you can see at the moment. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind. It's called a variegated leaf. Okay, and we just got there our chloroplasts, so we can see what they look like inside a cell. Okay, now we know that that light energy is taken in by the chlorophyll. Okay, so because energy is taken in for this reaction to work, and then chemical energy, the glucose, is produced, we can say that photosynthesis is an endothermic reaction. Okay, so photosynthesis, all you need to write for this slide is photosynthesis is an endothermic reaction. Okay, because it's taking that light energy, and the glucose that's produced is a form of, well, it's a chemical energy store. Okay, so it's an endothermic reaction. If you need any extra time, then pause now. Okay, this is our last bit of today's lesson. We've got some true or false statements here. So we've got 15 statements. We need to just do 1 to 15 in our books. Decide, is the statement a true statement or a false statement? Okay, so this is going to be one of those opportunities, I think, where it's best, give it a go. Don't, just say, oh, well, I'll get the answers soon, I'll write those down, because it's kind of good fun. There's a lot of things to think about in some of these questions, okay? So have a little pause in a second. And have a go at doing these questions, true or false. Pause now. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get our green pens out now and see if we are right. Okay, so let's go through our answers. This is the last slide for today's lesson. So photosynthesis uses light energy to make food. That is true. That food is called glucose. Most photosynthesis occurs in leaves. That is also true, as that's where the chloroplasts are found in the palisade cells. Plants use oxygen during photosynthesis. That's not true. They use carbon dioxide and they produce oxygen, so that one was false. Plants take in water via their leaves. No, that's also false. Although they have those holes, the stomata, they only release water into the atmosphere. The water comes in through the roots. Number 5, leaves have a large surface area to intercept maximum light. That was true. Plants lose most of their water from the leaves. True. Plants breathe in CO2 and breathe out O2. Breathe is the wrong word, so that one is false. Plants photosynthesize whilst animals respire. That's also false. Plants do respire. We just haven't talked about it yet because they are living things and all living things respire. Plants give out CO2 at night. That is true. We'll come on to that, and that links in with the fact that they respire. Question 10. Most water is absorbed by root hairs. That is true. We've talked about root hairs in B1. We'll talk about it again in this topic. Question 11. Palisade cells have many chloroplasts for photosynthesis. That is true. 12. Stomata are pores, which means holes in the leaf for gas exchange. That's true. 13. Leaves have a waxy surface to reduce water loss. Yes, we talked about that. It's on the top of the leaf, so that one's true. Number 14. Xylem cells transport water from roots to leaves. That's also true, and we called that process transpiration. Number 15. Plants store the food they produce as glucose. We haven't come across that one yet. We know they make it as glucose. How they store it is definitely not glucose, but we've got a number of strategies that they implement, which we'll talk about in another lesson, so that one was false. So that was lesson 1 of B4 for year 9. Hopefully you stayed up to speed with it. Like I said, try to do it in real time. We had some opportunities where we had to pause. If you need to go back, then feel free to do so to keep your notes looking good. It's really important that we realise that we have to do these lessons as we go. We won't have time to teach these again in the future, so we're trying to get them done properly now. So make sure you've got some good notes, please, and that you've covered the lesson as best you can, okay? Hopefully you like the video. It will be like this for every lesson until we get to the end of the topic, when we will do some educate questions. So hit subscribe, hit share. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you again next lesson. Thank you.